Hi, welcome everybody to ArcheTAP. Each Thursday night, we talk about a different archetype, we tap on it, and then we meditate with the archetype. And it's a lot of fun. Tonight, we're talking about the most dramatic of all of the archetypes, the Death card. And I'm just going to stick with this version today. Actually, I'm going to take my sweater off because I'm having a hot flash. So sorry. Let me just do that now. I'm just going to work with the universal weight tarot today. It's got a lot of symbolism, and um, the other one is so hard to see in this camera that with that kind of like sheen that it has on it. So we're just going to ride with this one. But we're talking about the Death card, which really death just equals transformation, but it does probably become the most feared card if it shows up in a reading. um, yeah, if you catch it in a reading, you tend to take it very literally, and often it's not so literal, you know? Some keywords associated with this card: change, letting go, release, impermanence, transition, metamorphosis. You can see the track that we're on here. This is associated with the angel of death and rebirth, and it's under the astrological sign Scorpio, which makes sense. I didn't know that before studying for this, and it made sense once I. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the symbols found on the card here. Obviously, front and center up top, you have the Grim Reaper, this skeleton in a suit of armor. He's got this black standard. So for sure, the skeleton himself is just death. Death himself coming for you. The flag with this white flower, maybe it's a rose or I don't know, hibiscus looking. It's about desires being purified, and along with the white horse as well. It's about purity. So down, okay, we've got a guy, a king with his crown knocked off flat on the ground here. There's a little kid with some flowers facing death. There's a woman turning away. And then there is some kind of officiant, maybe a pope or something like that, is kind of pleading with him. There's a river running through the background, and then the sun is kind of coming up. So there's a lot happening in this card, more so than some of the others. I'm going to kind of hold this up while I talk. The river most likely is the river Styx. As ancient as some of the symbolism is, that was the gateway between the other world and this world in Egyptian mythology, which in the river itself is like flux and flow, right? The sun rising, we've got a new dawn coming, no matter what, how much change is happening, like there's something good on the horizon. And then this man in yellow, the Pope here, he's bargaining with death. He's pleading. He's got his hands out. Maybe he has something in his hands even, but he's pleading with death. And then this woman here is like, nope, I don't even want to, I can't even handle talking about it. And the little girl, the child with flowers, is greeting him, you know, and saying like, come on, let's bring it. And the fallen crown on the ground there is that no one is immune to this, that it's one of the hardest topics for us to talk about as a culture, and it would probably really behoove us to talk about it more, or at least think about it more. And because one of the questions that we'll get into at the end of this when we're in the meditation, it's like, I think we would all, I can say for myself, let me just make an I statement here. If I really understood death and I really understood transformation, I think I'd be living my life differently. So I get that I've got some space to go, you know, and grow and learn and whatever. But yeah, so we want to talk about it. All right. So the dark side of this archetype is the pain that comes with letting things go. I don't know about any of you in this class, but you pretty much have to pry things out of my cold dead hands for me to things go. So I really struggle in this area. So honestly, this class has been good for me to put together. It was sort of triggering in some ways, but and then the light side of this is change, you know? Oh yeah, I forgot about the chat. I'm pulling the chat up so I see you guys. Yeah, same for you. Yay. Hi, Wendy. Glad to have you in class. Lighter side, yeah, that we're accepting and we're like looking forward to change. Change usually brings something good with it, but often we don't look at it that way. So it's like the clearing away and making room for something new. Ultimately, I mean, just in the simplest of terms, like death equals transformation. It represents the cutting away of old habits. That's what we're going to talk about mostly tonight. Old behaviors, old patterns. I know we've been building on it the last few weeks, but this is sort of the extension of the hanged man. Like this card comes behind the hanged man for a reason. So whatever patterns, thoughts, emotions, relationships, whatever, all of that has to be transcended. That's what he does, is he transcends these things. This archetype holds a really pure, kind of cold, piercing truth in his spirit and just sort of cuts through a lot of the psycho-emotional shit that we can really get in. I personally can sometimes get really lost in and trying to figure it out, right? Like thinking about the problem. So in the original deck, the Marseille deck, he didn't have a name. They just, because death equaled the void, and that's really where transformation happens. If we think about, oh, I don't know, like muscles, we don't build the muscle when we're lifting the weight. We build the muscle when we're sleeping at night, resting after we've lifted the weight. So it's sort of like that there's a void space where we integrate, and that integration period is really important and needs to be just as honored as everything else. So to remain in its highest vibrational state, this archetype has to constantly be transcending. It's just constantly transcending. That's basically the thing that I got from this. It's like every resource that I looked at, it's like you're constantly making sense of the past. You're constantly cutting cords with it. You're not looking back. I laugh because these are hard for me. So it's constant. Death is constant. Change is constant. It's the only thing that we really are guaranteed, but we fear the most. And if we're not doing that and we fall into the lower vibrational state of this archetype, it looks like lifelessness. It looks like stagnation. It can really produce a deep depression, as well as a like really profound cynicism, which I think especially American culture kind of gets away with sometimes. That like cynical is just like, I'm just being a realist, but it's actively and pointlessly destructive. We know that that's not really how it works, but it's sort of an escape route out of having to like take ownership of how we're feeling to be cynical. So it goes back to the last few classes where we talk about criticism, you know, and like, is it really helpful in the real world? So this archetype really helps us dissolve error patterns, you know? It's not our fault. Our brain is sort of like a computer. It gets downloaded with information as a child from our parents, from religion, from schools, from culture. I mean, like all the things that we get conditioned with, and then we don't have anything to compare it to. So we just accept what we're taught, you know, and then we like all of a sudden we're out in our adult lives and we realize like, oh shit, I've got limiting beliefs. I've got false beliefs that I've carried with me. And that in and of itself can be its own pain because you have to admit you're wrong in some way. And that maybe a section of your life was sort of not what you hoped it would be, you know? But the deal with this is that we're all right where we're supposed to be. All of us. We're all right where we're supposed to be. And it's something that I have to remind myself of too, because I can find myself in judgment easily, but we don't know what anyone else's timeline is like. And I have to remind myself of that for me and for others when I find myself in judgment. But we know deep down that we have to get rid of these like lower parts of ourselves to ascend higher. And if that energy is blocked because of fear and it's fear more around the ego death, then we'll resist change and then accidentally block spontaneity and like the beauty of life. And we might miss some opportunities. And again, I don't want to say that to like impart fear that you're missing out on your life. Like, I really do. If you have any takeaway from tonight, I want you to know that you're right where you're supposed to be. So, sometimes it's tricky when you're dealing with shadow work to not take it personally. And so I really want to encourage everyone here, because I found myself in that as I was writing the class, and I was like, oh, this is where I'm fucking up, and this is where I'm fucking up, and this is, you know, and that's not helpful. It's not helpful to me, and it's not helpful to you guys, you know. And so I have to catch it, and I have to try to transcend it and let it go, because it's really just my ego talking anyway too, you know. It's just another section of it. It's like, oh, I'm not living up to some standard or whatever. But so negative ego projections can also result in like a constant monitoring of your physical body to see what's going on with it. And that can really lead to disordered symptoms too in your physical body. So does that hit for anybody? Does anyone else do that? Are they overly concerned with what their body is doing at any given moment the way that I can be? Yeah, absolutely do. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, right. I know. It's just a part of it, but we're going to figure it out and we're going to clear it tonight. And we're going to start the path. The main thrust of a lot of the mystery schools that were started in ancient times was to help the initiate would come to the school, right? And then the monks there would help him like die to the personality and awaken to the divine reality within. And it sounds really fancy and it sounds awesome. And yeah, obsessed with diagnosis. Yes, I am. Analysis paralysis. But I'm glad I'm not alone. Anyway, they taught that the teaching really was that the only true death that we ever experience is being birthed into this earth school. And honestly, I wholeheartedly accept that as the truth, because it's hard here. It is hard here. We got conditioned in a really weird way, and then we're all trying to figure it out, you know? So they considered physical birth to be the only death that we ever experience, and that the only true birth is the realization and the freeing of your spiritual self. So it was also taught that anyone that forsakes a spiritual life and instead chooses a material life is false ambition. So you're already sort of dead inside. And I want to talk about that too, because sometimes when I read stuff like this, I'm like, that's great, but I also want stuff. Like, I'm a person in this world who, you know, really wants to be successful, and I want to be successful for a lot of really good reasons. Like, I really want to give back to humanity, but I don't. Sometimes it's easy to read things like this and just think like, well, I'm not supposed to want anything at all. And I don't think that that is really the message. I think the message is that your value doesn't come from those things. You know, that you are filling up your own cup and then those things can come. Something along those lines. But so let's really get practical of like, what does it really look like, death and rebirth? I mean, it's sort of easy to talk about it in lofty ways, but like, how do we really apply this to our life in a practical sense, right? So what we really want to die is fear and lack and limitation, conflict, guilt, shame. We want all of those things to die. We want, you know, any constriction. We want resistance to go away. It feels bad. And what we really want to give birth to is love and abundance and freedom and mastery over this shit. Right? So how do we bring about this mystical death and this mystical rebirth? The simplest way that can be summed up easily, but is still a choice that we have to activate daily, is that, like we've talked in the last few classes, we place our faith in the invisible. We can't see it. We want to touch it so bad, but we have to put our faith in the invisible, that there is a safety net I cannot see that is out there for me. And then we have to sever emotional attachments that are causing us bondage in our life. And to be perfectly honest, this is the area that I struggle with the most. And I get that I'm just going to have to do it 1 degree at a time, which will make sense in 2 seconds. You know, when we have some humility with the ego, it energizes, and then we can develop our power of intuition in a whole new way. And that's really exciting for me. Like, that's something that I really want. I don't want to sit at like the head of this classroom and tell you that I like have arrived when I haven't yet, you know. But I am sincere. I am sincere. And I think that that's really the thing, that if we're sincere, we can develop our power of intuition slowly over time. Some of us move faster than others. Sometimes I get very frustrated at my own pace, and that I'm not necessarily picking up on some of this stuff faster than I should be, whatever that means. But small steps daily is really the answer here. It's, you know, if you turn your boat 1 degree, eventually it's going to be very differently off path than where you started. And so a small change makes a really big difference. Eventually you just sort of, the theory is we gently ease out of the old personality and we start showing up in our fullest vibration, you know? And that's not to say, I was kind of studying some of Hawkins' emotional frequency scale today. We're always going to dip in and out. And I needed to be reminded of that too. It's like most of us have a consistent level of vibration, but we're going to feel the whole spectrum of emotion in any given day. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, we don't want to hang out there if it's super low, but you're still going to feel fear. You're still going to feel grief. You know, you're going to feel these lower states that we're trying to give up to move into higher states. But if we're sincere and we're offering ourselves, you know, that this change can come and happen, and it will, and that I'll just keep working on it, you know, even on days that I get frustrated, and same with you guys. Yeah, changing slower is much less intimidating, right? I mean, and really that's probably the way that I should be looking at it all the time. I am an impatient person. I want it all now. But you're right. I mean, we need integration time. I mean, the majority of the world sort of learns in a stair step curve where they like have a big kind of awakening, and then they plateau, and then they learn some more shit, and then they plateau, and then they learn, you know, and that's the majority of the world learns that way. And it is less intimidating that way. You know, if we had to figure it all out tomorrow, and we're in a luxury. And I try to remind myself of that too. Like, I have space and time to figure these things out, you know? It's not an overnight process for most of us, is really just the name of the game here. So by dying daily in little tiny small deaths, moment to moment. Some days we create new patterns and we slowly feel better, and our consciousness rises, and that feels better. You know, when you're in, from an Abraham Hicks perspective, you know, when you're in the vortex, you know, you feel it. It feels fucking good. And that's, I get more than ever now, like that's the state that we're looking for before we take any action. It doesn't matter what the action is. I don't care if you're just like going to your fridge to get a fudgesicle out. If you have guilt and shame about getting that out of the fridge first, it's really going to fuck you up. And then that fudgesicle is not going to be very good for you. But if you could find some alignment with the fudgesicle before you went and got it out of the freeze, you know what I mean? I don't know where fudgesicle came from. I don't eat them. But you get my point. It's like a mundane point, but like we have to find alignment first before we take any action. It doesn't matter what it is. So we're in the rebirthing process. Every time we turn away from 3D reality and refuse to go down rabbit holes that challenge our health, our supply, our abundance, our career, our relationships, like I have so much air in my chart. It's stupid. I don't know why I designed myself this way, but it really did a good number on me. And so I've just got all this mental pressure all the time to think and think and think about my problems. But my biggest takeaway when putting this class together to yesterday and today was I'm going to try to catch the rabbit holes that my brain tries to like slip me down more often and redirect to something that is positive, that is like going to be helpful for me in the long run. Sorry, I just read ice cream and then I was giggled about it. I mean, see, you know, we've all got our shit. And I loved thinking about it like a rebirthing process. In every moment that I make a decision to find alignment before I do the thing. It doesn't matter what the thing is. It really doesn't. You just want to feel good about the thing that you're doing. So that's my TED Talk on this. The mental traps, the what ifs, all of it feels like shit. And it just produces more resistance and it amplifies the problem even more. And it's the biggest trap. And I see it so clearly. Sometimes I'm sure you guys do too. And I can't finagle myself out of it, but that's not surrender. Amplifying the problem, fighting against, pushing against, it's not surrender. Um, it can be very challenging. It's a practice. I think that that's probably the point of life, honestly. It's just to practice these things. It's all just a practice. Okay. Any questions about anything before we move into the tapping portion? Put them in the chat. Pardon me. Okay. If no one has any questions, then just start tapping on this side of the hand while I get us kind of set up here. So depending on where you are, if you're seated, try to sit up straight. If you're laying down, great. Just relax and tap on the side of your hand. But if you're seated, try to make sure that your spine's energy is kind of running vertically here. You'll mimic the tapping points as I move through them, and then you'll just repeat after me. Sometimes I seek comfort in material possessions and external validation. Sometimes I feel like that's the only way I'll be happy. Sometimes I am really resistant to change. I can act out in fear anger, jealousy, and sort of cling to what I know. So even though I've let fear dictate my actions, which has led to procrastination, overindulgence, and criticism of myself and others. I choose to deeply and completely love, honor, and accept myself. Okay, big deep breath. We've loaded a little bit of the problem into our circuitry. So just start tapping on the top of the head. You can use one hand or two, doesn't matter. I'm noticing how I cling to old habits. I'm noticing how I cling to old fears. Like avoiding new opportunities. It is hard for me to admit sometimes that I've sought happiness through shopping. I've sought happiness through reaching my next level at work. I've sought happiness through relationships. I recognize my actions are often driven by fear. Sometimes I snap at the people I love the most. I can easily isolate myself. Sometimes I binge social media for too long. And I am super great at eating my feelings. I see how my ego wants to protect me, to hide my true self so that I can fit in. I acknowledge those moments where I've treated others harshly. And I choose to understand that that's just a reflection of my own insecurity. So little by little, I'm letting myself feel hopeful about letting go of these old patterns. I'm really curious about who I can become. I choose to step into my higher self, embracing these small deaths as a path to my expansion and growth. Every time I show up for myself, I am shedding layers of my lower nature. I am choosing to invite in the light. I am choosing to find courage in my heart. And every day, I'm feeling more connected to my true essence. And I now understand that the archetype of death isn't about loss, but about releasing what no longer serves me. So I am choosing today to embrace the transformation. I trust that by surrendering, I'm making space for something new and wonderful. I choose new growth. I choose new, better connections. Most importantly, I choose peace. And so it is. Okay. I needed that too. Hopefully, you guys are feeling a little bit more relaxed than when we started. Okay, so same deal here. I want you, if you're laying down, awesome. Like just get comfy. If you're seated, I want you to sit up straight. Sorry. Close your eyes. Let your hands just come to rest on the tops of your thighs if you're seated or just by your sides if you're laying down. Take a nice, big, deep letting go breath. Let your entire body begin to relax, starting with your toes. Relax your toes, your feet, your ankles. Relax your calves, your knees, and your thighs. Let your belly relax and your chest. Relax your shoulders. Relax your arms all the way down to your fingertips. Your neck softens. Your tongue softens. Relax your jaw. The tiny muscles around your eyes. Relax your forehead. Really good work. Every breath, you become more relaxed. Now begin to imagine you're looking at a movie screen And on that movie screen are all the sources of any of your undesired subconscious programming. We're just stating facts. On the movie screen, you might see advertisements. Perhaps there are family members on the movie screen who have said less than positive things to you. Anything that informed your subconscious mind. Perhaps there's a teacher there, or an ex-lover, or even a current partner. All of them are the same things that informed your subconscious, and they no longer serve you. Add them all to the movie screen. All the things, all the people, in ways that just no longer serve. You don't even need to know who they are or what it's all about. They might appear as shadows or shapes or groups of people. However they appear is correct. Allow this movie screen to become filled with everyone and everything that negatively informed your subconscious life previously. Just trust and go with whatever comes. As you're looking at this movie screen in front of you, imagine there are cords coming from all of these advertisements, all of these people in your life, whatever else is up there. And these cords are connecting to your subconscious mind. Perhaps your subconscious mind feels like it's in your head. Maybe it feels like it's in your heart. Maybe it feels like it's in your gut or your back or your hands. Wherever those cords are connecting into you is correct for you. We just want you to become aware of them. I want you to become aware of where they're connecting to your subconscious. We're going to do a process where you take your power back. All that subconscious programming. By doing this, you're saying, I know what's best for my subconscious. I know what I want my programming to be. I know what I want my beliefs and my habits to reflect. I know what I want my life to look like. I want you to start to deepen your breath. You're going to imagine a light of energy going through those cords from your body to the movie screen. There's a cord for each attachment to your subconscious mind. You're going to imagine a light of energy going through those cords. That's taking your power back from them. Because anytime we have allowed ourselves to feel bad, or anytime we were controlled by someone without even understanding or meaning to. Anytime we gave in to, I don't know, purchasing some new face cream that's going to knock 20 years off your face in 72 hours, whatever. Any of that junk, we're going to take our power back from it. As you inhale and exhale, it's going to go like this. You're going to send a dull, dingy color back out of your body, across the space, into the movie screen. And that is you getting rid of this controlling power. Every exhale, you're getting rid of any negative subconscious programming. We're giving it back to where it came from. And we don't have to worry about giving it back to the people that it came from. That's their problem. You're allowing those people, places, things to take responsibility for their own karma. Because you've been carrying everyone else's stuff around for a long time. And that's actually impeding their growth. You're accidentally slowing down the process of them living their life, their energetic evolution. So you'll do this. You'll take in deep inhalations like this. Imagine a bright light coming across these cords. And that you're taking your power back from everything on the screen in front of you. And every exhale, you send a dull, dingy color out of your body into that screen. And maybe the color just like plops on the floor of the movie screen. Or maybe it goes back into someone or something so that they can own it. So we're getting ready to begin. It's an exciting moment. Excuse me. I want you to trust the images and impressions and feelings that are coming through. And as you inhale, pull your power back into your body. And as you exhale, this dull, dingy color, giving all that crap back that you don't need anymore. Your body feels so good. Keep breathing, continuing the process. You're doing really well. 5, 6 more breaths. You're getting more powerful. You're feeling more and more free. Now, in just a moment, we're going to cut those cords. So you're going to use your dominant hand, the hand that you write with. And in a karate chop-like motion, you're going to use the side of your hand like a blade, and you're going to cut all of the cords that are standing in between you and that movie screen. Inhale and now. As soon as you do, the entire movie screen just disappears. The movie screen goes completely blank. In front of you, the angel of death appears. He may appear like the Grim Reaper, but he might not. He might come in a different form, and just go and trust with what comes to you. You feel relaxed. You're calm. You're in your power. Find a comfy seat. Imagine a chair that you love appears in front of you, one for you, one for him. And you get to have a little conversation. What are you ready to let go of? Ask him, what am I ready to let go of? What is cluttering up your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual space? What's keeping you imprisoned? What's cluttering up your physical space, mental space, emotional space, spiritual space? Last question. If I truly embraced impermanence, how would I live my life differently? If I truly embraced impermanence, how would I live my life differently? Please stay in the meditation as long as it feels good to you. I'm going to quietly exit the group. Know that if you're worried about remembering any part of the conversation, you can imagine yourself writing down the answers in your mind's eye and then sticking the paper in your left front pocket. The left side is our yin side, so it'll help you remember. And I will see you next week for a new archetype.